Take a slow, deep breath. In through your nose, and gently out through your mouth. The story of trauma is the story of the human body. It is not just something that happens in the mind. It lives in the flesh, in the breath, in the nervous system. And few books have revealed this truth as powerfully as The Body Keeps the Score, a work that changed the way we understand trauma, healing, and the body itself. This isn't just a book about pain. It's about how we survive, how the body remembers what the mind tries to forget, and how healing begins not by escaping the body, but by returning to it. 1. Bessel van der Kolk and the World of Trauma. Bessel van der Kolk, MD, is a psychiatrist and researcher who spent decades working with trauma survivors, war veterans, survivors of abuse, people who had lived through unimaginable events. When he began this work in the 1970s and 80s, trauma was well understood. Doctors focused mostly on the mind, on talk therapy, on symptoms. But what van der Kolk saw in his patients didn't fit neatly into psychological categories. They weren't just remembering their trauma. They were reliving it in their bodies, their nervous systems, their relationships. Their trauma was not an event in the past. It was alive right now. He began to realize something profound. The body doesn't simply move on. The body keeps the score. 2. What trauma really is. Trauma is not just a bad memory. It's an experience that overwhelms the nervous system. An event or series of events so intense that the body goes into survival mode. In trauma, the ordinary processing of experience shuts down. The rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, can't make sense of what's happening. The emotional and survival brain, the amygdala, brainstem, and limbic system, take over. This isn't weakness, it's survival. When the danger ends, the brain should be able to integrate the memory, file it away, and return to balance. But for many trauma survivors, this never fully happens. The memory doesn't become a story from the past. It becomes an internal alarm that never turns off. Sounds, smells, voices, or even silence can reawaken the terror. The body reacts as if the trauma is happening again, because in a physiological sense, it is. 3. The impact on the brain. Van der Kolk describes 3 main brain regions affected by trauma. The amygdala, the brain's smoke detector. In trauma, it becomes overactive, always scanning for danger. The medial prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that calms the alarm and helps us make sense of experiences. Trauma can shut this down. The hippocampus, where memory is processed and time-stamped. Trauma disrupts this, making past and present blur. This neurological pattern is why people can know they are safe, yet still feel terrified. Their logical mind is overridden by the survival brain. This is also why telling someone to just get over it or calm down never works. Trauma isn't stored as a neat story. It's stored as sensations, emotions, flashbacks, muscle tension, and alarm. 4. The body as the archive. For trauma survivors, the body becomes both the guardian and the prisoner of their history. Muscles remain tense. Breath becomes shallow. The nervous system stays on alert, ready for a danger that no longer exists. Many trauma survivors don't have clear verbal memories of what happened, but their bodies remember in other ways. Chronic pain, migraines, digestive issues, dissociation, panic attacks, emotional volatility or numbness. The trauma is stored not only in the mind, but in the patterns of the body. Van der Kolk writes, "The body keeps the score. If the memory of trauma is encoded in the viscera, in heartbreaking and gut-wrenching emotions, in autoimmune disorders and skeletal muscular problems, then talking about it is not enough." 5. The limits of talk therapy. Early in his career, Van der Kolk was trained in traditional psychotherapy. But he quickly discovered that talk therapy alone often didn't help his trauma patients. Why? because trauma lives in the part of the brain that has no words. While language can help us make meaning, it cannot fully access the pre-verbal, sensory, emotional core where trauma is stored. A survivor might be able to talk about what happened without feeling anything. Or they might feel everything but have no words. Healing required more than talking. It required helping the body feel safe again. 6. The survival responses: fight, flight, freeze, and collapse. When danger strikes, the nervous system activates its survival circuits. Fight, mobilize, attack, defend. Flight, escape. Freeze, stop moving, stay invisible. Collapse, dissociate, numb out, shut down. In healthy systems, these responses switch off when the danger ends. But trauma locks people into survival states. Their nervous system behaves as if danger is still present, even decades later. This can manifest as hypervigilance, anxiety, anger, or numbness and depression. For many, these patterns shape their entire lives. 7. Dissociation: the body splits from the self. One of trauma's most common survival strategies is dissociation. A mental and bodily escape when actual escape isn't possible. A child who is abused can't run away. Their only refuge is to leave their body, to numb, to fragment. Dissociation can make people feel like they're observing life from outside themselves, like their body isn't fully theirs. For many trauma survivors, the road to healing begins with reclaiming their body as their own safe home again. 8. The importance of safety. Van der Kolk emphasizes, healing cannot happen without a sense of safety. This isn't just intellectual safety, it's physiological safety. The nervous system must believe, I am not in danger anymore. Without safety, even the best therapy techniques won't work. With safety, the body can slowly begin to trust again. Safety can be built through stable relationships, calm environments, body-based practices, and gentle, predictable rhythms. 9. The role of relationships. Trauma often happens in relationship: abuse, neglect, war, betrayal. This means healing must often happen in relationship, too. Van der Kolk explains how trauma survivors often struggle to trust, to connect, or to feel safe with others. Their bodies anticipate danger, even from people who mean well. Therapy that works for trauma is less about explaining and more about co-regulation. Being with another human who is calm, steady, and attuned. Healing begins not with being told, you're safe, but with feeling safe with someone. 10. Body-based healing. One of the most groundbreaking contributions of the body keeps the score is its emphasis on somatic healing. Van der Kolk saw that when patients learned to notice and inhabit their body again, healing accelerated. Body-based therapies include: yoga helps survivors feel their body in the present moment. TRE, trauma release exercises and tremoring. Somatic experiencing, gently releasing stored survival energy. Sensory integration, particularly important for developmental trauma. Breathwork and grounding, re-establishing physiological safety. These practices bypass the rational brain and speak directly to the nervous system, the place where trauma lives. 11. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR. EMDR is a therapy that uses bilateral stimulation, often eye movements, to help the brain reprocess traumatic memories. Unlike traditional talk therapy, EMDR allows survivors to access trauma without being overwhelmed by it. It creates enough distance for the brain to integrate the memory into the past. Van der Kolk became a strong advocate for EMDR after seeing profound transformations in patients who hadn't responded to other treatments. 12. Neurofeedback in the brain. Trauma alters the brain's activity patterns. Neurofeedback is a technique that uses real-time feedback from brainwave activity to help people regulate their nervous system. Instead of forcing the mind to calm down, neurofeedback gently trains the brain to shift its own state. Many trauma survivors experience this as the first time their nervous system learns what calm feels like. 13. Trauma and the body's physiology. Van der Kolk explains how trauma affects almost every physiological system. Endocrine system, chronic stress hormones. Immune system, inflammation and autoimmune disorders. Cardiovascular system, increased risk of heart problems. Digestive system, gut issues, IBS, disrupted microbiome. Musculoskeletal system, chronic pain and tension. This is why trauma survivors often present with physical illnesses that have no clear medical explanation, because the trauma is in the body. 14. Childhood trauma and development. Trauma in childhood shapes the brain and body in profound ways. Unlike a single adult traumatic event, chronic developmental trauma alters attachment, identity, emotional regulation, brain structure, capacity for trust. Children who grow up in unsafe homes often carry trauma as adults without even realizing it. They may struggle with intimacy, anxiety, or chronic dysregulation long after the danger is gone. Van der Kolk stresses, trauma isn't just what happened to you. It's what happens inside you as a result. 15. The problem with diagnosis and medication. In modern psychiatry, trauma is often hidden under diagnoses like depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder, ADHD, or bipolar disorder. But if we treat only the symptoms without addressing the root trauma, we miss the real story. Medication can help stabilize symptoms, but it cannot heal trauma. Healing happens through embodiment, safety, connection, and integration. 16. Trauma and society. Van der Kolk also turns his gaze outward, to society itself. He argues that trauma is not only personal, but collective. War, poverty, racism, abuse, neglect, these leave scars not just on individuals, but on communities. When trauma goes untreated at scale, it becomes cycles of violence, disconnection, and despair. This is why trauma-informed approaches are needed not just in therapy rooms, but in schools, hospitals, prisons, and governments. 17. The power of community. While trauma often isolates, healing thrives in community. Support groups, group therapies, movement classes, safe friendships, and creative spaces can offer what trauma took away: belonging. Humans regulate best when they feel seen and safe with others. This is co-regulation, and it is as old as our species. 18. The role of the arts. One of the most beautiful insights from Van der Kolk's work is the importance of creativity in healing trauma. Dance, music, theater, storytelling. These are not luxuries. They are ancient ways of reclaiming the body, of making meaning from pain, of reconnecting with humanity. Art allows expression without needing perfect language. It can move trauma from the wordless body into shared experience. 19. Integration, not erasure. Healing trauma does not mean erasing the past. It means integrating it. The trauma may always be part of the story, but it no longer controls the present. It becomes a chapter, not the entire book. This is what Van der Kolk calls ownership of experience, reclaiming one's body, one's mind, and one's future. 20. The core message. The central truth of the body keeps the score is simple, but radical. Trauma is not just psychological. It lives in the body. And if the body holds the trauma, the body must also be part of the healing. True recovery is not about forgetting or getting over it. It's about finding safety in your own skin again. Reconnecting with your breath, your sensations, your voice, your truth. It's about becoming the author of your story again, not just its survivor. 21. From trauma to resilience. Van der Kolk ends the book not in despair, but in hope. He has witnessed people come back from places of unimaginable darkness. He has seen war veterans learn to sleep again. He has seen children reclaim their sense of self. He has seen survivors become teachers, healers, and leaders. The human body is not just a container for trauma. It's also a vessel for resilience. With the right conditions, safety, connection, embodiment, and support, the body can learn to trust again. And the nervous system can find its way home. Closing reflections. If you've come this far, if you've walked with me through this entire journey, then maybe these words are reaching something in you. Maybe you carry your own story of trauma. Or maybe you love someone who does. Maybe you've spent years trying to think your way out of pain and wondered why it didn't work. This is why. Because trauma isn't just a thought. It's a full body experience. And the path to healing is a full body return. You are not broken. Your body has been protecting you. But you can teach it, gently, slowly, that it's safe now. This is the quiet, radical message of the body keeps the score. And it's a message the world needs to hear. Take one last deep breath. Feel your body. Not the story about it, but the sensations within it. That is where healing begins. Not in escaping the body, but in coming home to it.